Hi everyone, Gail here from Sober Bliss and welcome to the Sobriety Hacks video series. Today I'm going to teach you 10 things that you can do to get through a party successfully and sober. Now, whether you love parties or you hate them, at some point in your journey to sobriety, you're going to have to attend your first party sober. So here are 10 things that you can do to make sure that you have a great time. Tip number 1 is arrive late. There's no rules and regulations to say that just because the party starts at 8, you have to arrive at 8. You can arrive late and be like a celebrity. And that means if you really don't want to be there, arriving late means that you can spend less time there. Tip 2 is to drive. Driving is a brilliant excuse. Well, it's not an excuse, it's a reason for not drinking. It's acceptable and it's plausible and it's often true. And also it means that you don't have to explain the real reason why you're not drinking if you don't want to. So tip number 2 is to drive. Tip 3, again, is to do with your reasons for not drinking. And that is, if you have to, then you can lie. So tip 3 is to lie if you have to. You know, tell somebody you're on antibiotics, or you've got an early start in the morning, you're training for a marathon, whatever you can think of. So be prepared before you go of what you're going to say when somebody asks you why you're not drinking, and lie if you have to. Tip number 4 is before you go, have in your mind 4 or 5 non-alcoholic drinks that you like that you can ask for. There's nothing worse than going up to the bar and asking for whatever, find they haven't got it. That can leave you a bit stumped, then you're not sure what to say, what to ask for, and it could be tempted to maybe have a drink or to end up drinking something boring like water or sparkling water. Tip number 5 is, if you can, take your own non-alcoholic drinks to the party or the event. If it's a house party, then that's absolutely fine. People tend to take their own drinks anyway. So take your own, and that way there's absolutely no problem about wondering what to drink, whether there are any non-alcoholic drinks there in the first place. Tip number 6 is to always try and keep your glass full. That way nobody will come along and say, oh, do you want to top up, and take your glass away and bring you something that you don't want. You won't have people always asking you, do you want a drink, what are you going to have? If you have your glass always full and wander around with it, then that will stop all that. Also, just having a glass in your hand with something in it can help you feel a lot more relaxed and help you blend in and fit in with anybody else. So tip number 6 is to keep your glass full. Tip number 7 is my favorite one, and that is to concentrate on the food. If you're going to somebody else's house or it's a posh venue or whatever, then usually there's a lot of lovely food. In the past, I would probably just pick at the food, because obviously when you're drinking, you want to leave room for your wine or your beer, and you don't really bothered about the food. So when you're not drinking, it's brilliant because you can eat as much as you want and you won't feel guilty. And that way, if you're full and you're eating, you've got something to do and you won't be tempted to drink anyway. This is my favorite thing. Concentrate on the food. Tip number 8 is to find another person who's not drinking to talk to. That means you can have some proper conversation, and it also means that you avoid close talking. You know, when drunk people come over and talk to you, they're in your face. And also it means you don't have to inhale all the horrible boozy breath. So if you can, stand next to, talk to another sober person. It really helps. Tip number 9 is, if you're tempted to drink, you know, if you think, oh, maybe one won't hurt, it's a party after all, then I really recommend that you play the movie forward in your head. You probably heard this before, but it's really helpful. So think about what would happen if you had that one drink. You probably wouldn't just have one drink. And then what the consequences would be, how you would end up and how awful and, you know, full of regret you would feel the next day. So instead, concentrate on how brilliant it will be to have a fabulous time at the party, to go home at a reasonable hour, to go to bed nice and sober and clear-headed, and best of all, wake up the next day without a hangover. So that probably is one of the most important tips. Play the movie forward in your head. And lastly, tip number 10 is to leave early. Remember, you're not forced to stay there until the bitter end. If things get too much, just leave. And if you're driving, then it's so much easier. Don't worry about saying goodbye to the host. Don't worry about, you know, going around saying goodbye to all your friends. Don't make excuses. When you're ready, just leave. Have an escape plan. Say, I don't know, I'll be back in a minute, or I'm just going to the loo, and then sneak out the door, and then you've gone and you're home nice and safe and sober. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sobriety Hacks video today. I really hope that you find these tips helpful. If you did, then please leave a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you've got any more tips of your own, then feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.